Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted.
Law enforcement insiders just revealed that Christian Combs is set to testify during his father's trial, and what he knows could destroy or save everything Diddy has achieved. Stay glued for details. Behind the scenes, things have been unraveling. Christian Combs, Diddy's oldest son, was reportedly cooperating with federal prosecutors just days before his father's high-stakes trial was set to begin. Court documents included a sealed memo outlining the expected testimony from a family member. Sources confirmed it was Christian, known to fans as King Combs, a 27-year-old rapper.
Hey, yo, how long you been dreaming about this?
Hey, I've been dreaming about this since I was like 1 year old. 4 years
Real
old.
talk.
I ain't gonna lie, like
Real talk.
for this to happen, I don't know. I feel like it's fake right now.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it's real.
No, it's real. You put that work in.
Yeah.
You put that work in. You know what I'm saying? You put out a couple of records. They was making you work harder. You worked harder. Congratulations. I'm proud of you, son. For real. For real. For real. Nobody can ever take that shit away from you. You did it. I gave you absolutely no help.
Yeah.
I even tried to beat you to #1. You got the #1 before me. I'm proud of you. I love you. Your mother will be proud. Shout out to all the fathers. We can do this. This is for us.
Prosecutors believed he had direct knowledge of private jet trips, exclusive guest lists, and under-the-table money transactions related to parties in the Hamptons and Miami. These events, held from 2015 to 2022, were now central to the government's investigation. Christian's cooperation could flip the case upside down. Former prosecutors emphasized how rare and powerful family testimony could be, especially in a conspiracy case. Diddy had rejected a plea deal that would have capped his prison time at 12 years, signaling his readiness to fight back. It was unclear if Christian had a formal immunity agreement, but insiders said things escalated quickly after Homeland Security raided Diddy's properties in LA and Miami. Agents seized electronics and financial records that painted a picture of extravagant gatherings and secret transactions.
Are you okay? Are you feeling okay?
And I hope the whole grandma that better swim too, back up a little bit.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Prosecutors claimed at least 14 devices contained father-son conversations, some of which they now wanted verified on the stand. If Diddy was convicted on all counts, he could face over 20 years in prison. Christian hadn't been charged, but his involvement raised questions. Was he trying to shield himself from future charges? Analysts suggested that once agents had those devices, anyone close to the money, including family, became a potential witness. Allegedly, encrypted app messages tied Christian to organizing luxury flights and yacht parties, including high-profile guest lists. Prosecutors pointed to shell companies linked to Bad Boy Entertainment as the financial source behind these trips, arguing they were part of a coordinated operation to transport people across state lines for unlawful purposes. Diddy's team dismissed those claims, saying the jets simply ferried celebrities to industry parties. His lead attorney condemned the tactic of pushing a son to testify against his father, calling it a new low in celebrity trials. They requested that the judge review Christian's sealed testimony before opening arguments, but the judge decided to wait until Christian was actually questioned. Christian's team remained silent, citing legal constraints, but a source close to him confirmed he met with prosecutors twice in April. Meanwhile, Diddy's supporters insisted he was innocent, believing that he was being unfairly painted as a criminal. His lawyer reiterated that Diddy felt an obligation to stand firm, to prove that even a black man could beat the system in federal court. At a recent hearing, Diddy showed little emotion, sipping water as U.S. Marshals let him out. While Diddy's crew complained about being kept in the dark, insiders said that was exactly when pressure began mounting, not just on Diddy, but on the networks surrounding him. 50 Cent stirred the pot online, claiming he had documents naming other celebrities who profited from Diddy's ventures. Prosecutors responded by subpoenaing records for endorsement checks and behind-the-scenes financial arrangements. Although no other family members had officially joined Christian in cooperating, investigators had reportedly reached out to Justin Combs and Quincy Brown. Experts noted how damning it could be if a family member confirmed the details. Flight logs, money trails, witness statements. Paper trails show the how, but relatives show the why. That kind of testimony can be especially compelling to jurors. According to insiders, Christian was ready to talk about 6 major areas: guest lists for private jets, payment instructions tied to shell companies, real-time chat logs, security protocols, how cash was split after parties, and what kind of coaching was given when journalists started asking questions.
How are you doing this morning? How's it going, Justin? Quincy, how are you feeling this morning? How's the twins?
Still, Diddy's legal team pushed back, arguing Christian wasn't calling the shots and had no role in anything illegal. Yet the situation was revealing cracks within the Combs family. Jury selection loomed, and both legal teams expected it to wrap in just 3 days despite the case's high-profile nature. One expert pointed out that if jurors entered expecting the prosecution to deliver a mountain of evidence but instead saw only fragments that could actually help the defense. Earlier this year, Christian made it clear he was focused on music and fashion, not finances. Friends said the March raids shook him, especially seeing armed agents at the LA mansion where he often worked. The plea deal Diddy turned down would have required him to admit to 2 felony charges, give up firearms seized in the raid, and pay $20 million. His lawyer rejected it, saying it portrayed Diddy as a criminal mastermind, which they refused to accept. With jury selection just days away, legal analysts expected the trial to open with a bang. Prosecutors were preparing to unveil what they called a layered criminal operation cloaked in business. They said Diddy's empire, spanning spirits, events, and entertainment, was used to hide serious crimes. His team insisted it was nothing more than adult relationships blown out of proportion, and that most of the witnesses were only chasing civil lawsuit payouts. If the judge approved a Christian's cooperation deal, prosecutors were likely to call him early, possibly even before the other key witnesses. Experts said putting a family member on the stand first would set the tone, giving jurors a close, emotional entry into the case. As industry insiders braced for the fallout, the first signs had already appeared. Liquor distributors were pausing orders. Streaming numbers for Bad Boy's catalog were surging as fans revisited the music. But beneath the surface, the emotional impact of a son testifying in such a monumental case was hitting home, adding another layer of tension to an already explosive courtroom battle. At the last pre-trial hearing, Diddy entered the federal courthouse, scanning the room, seemingly looking for his family. Their absence was loud. His sons, his sister, even his mother, all had been present for previous hearings but were nowhere to be seen this time. Christian, despite being at the center of growing media speculation, hadn't filed a formal witness affidavit. Diddy's legal team was preparing to block certain questions if they believed they could put Christian at risk of self-incrimination. Still, insiders anticipated Christian would take the stand within the first week, potentially unraveling the timeline of events with alarming clarity.
Will P. Diddy himself testify? That decision is not made until pretty late in the trial. A lot of the decision making when it comes to who is going to testify for either side isn't about how important or powerful or famous they are. It's whether they're going to help build your case. And so I think it's very likely when you're dealing with parties that were attended by plenty of famous people in Hollywood, that some of them have been issued federal subpoenas already and have no choice but to follow the law, come into court, and take the stand.
Court records showed a status hearing was scheduled for the same morning jury selection would begin. Diddy remained in custody at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center without bail. Prosecutors insisted that the combination of firearms found during the raids and the new allegations justified keeping him behind bars. His team submitted a new bail request, citing family health emergencies, but the prosecution pushed back, calling Diddy a global flight risk with unlimited resources. Even as the legal storm intensified, Christian maintained a low public profile, aside from promoting his EP on social media. All his tour dates had been postponed, and the label he was signed to issued a brief statement saying they respected the legal process and would refrain from further comment. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team accused the government of targeting private family conversations. The judge had scheduled a final pre-trial conference to settle any last-minute disputes and finalize the witness schedule. In the background, federal prosecutors quietly dropped their biggest bombshell yet. They alleged Diddy had moved more than $74 million through 17 shell companies from 2016 to 2023. The wire transfers led from core bad boy accounts to LLCs scattered across Delaware, Nevada, and even the British Virgin Islands. Investigators said the funds paid for Gulfstream flights, luxury rentals, security teams, and party expenses, many of which were already under scrutiny in the larger indictment. A forensic accountant noted a pattern of identical five-figure withdrawals made just hours before private events prosecutors had labeled as high risk. The paper trail extended to Christian as well. 2 invoices showed his signature approving yacht rentals and catering for these events. That placed him directly on the financial records being used to build the government's case. Diddy's lawyer brushed off the ledgers as standard hospitality costs, arguing that the feds were twisting ordinary business into a crime narrative. But the scrutiny didn't stop there. Federal agents also served a new warrant on J.P. Morgan Chase, pulling documents tied to De Leon Tequila's marketing budget. Among them was a $900,000 transfer from De Leon to a dormant media company tied to one of Diddy's longtime advisors. Prosecutors claimed that the next day, that same amount funded a private jet trip to the Bahamas for 8 unnamed passengers.
You've been able to speak to your son.
What did you say to him when you visited him in court? Is he doing...
The fallout spread fast. Executives at Revolt TV scrambled to clarify that the network had no ties to the shell companies in question. Diageo, the spirits giant that had already ended their partnership with Diddy, confirmed that an internal audit showed no remaining financial links. But branding experts warned that if testimony revealed just how Diddy's empire functioned beneath the surface, it could permanently damage the luxury appeal of urban-targeted liquor brands that exploded in the early 2000s. Online, the case continued to explode. 50 Cent posted screenshots of the unsealed ledgers and reminded followers that he had been warning about this fallout for months. Sociologists and journalists began framing the moment as a cultural shift. On Twitter and beyond, people debated whether Christian's potential testimony was a betrayal or a brave act. Some praised him for stepping up. Others said prosecutors were tearing down black empires by weaponizing family ties. As the trial date arrived, prosecutors filed another motion to bring in prior bad acts as evidence. They pointed to a 2013 incident in Miami where security staff were allegedly instructed to seize phones and delete pictures from guests. Diddy's team responded swiftly, calling it irrelevant and a cheap attempt to bias the jury. But experts said if prosecutors could establish a pattern, such evidence often made its way in. The final preparations were underway. The media buzz reached fever pitch. Security intensified around the courthouse. The final pre-trial conference would settle expert report deadlines and witness order. Christian's sealed cooperation remained a looming question. If he testified early, he could accelerate the prosecution's case dramatically, providing first-hand confirmation of the events behind the ledgers, flight logs, and encrypted messages. Diddy's team was preparing for a scorched earth defense. They planned to challenge every witness's credibility, beginning with Christian. They questioned his motivations, especially since he hadn't been charged But prosecutors believe they had the foundation to show that Diddy blurred the lines between fame, money, and manipulation, and they were ready to make their case in one of the most watched celebrity trials of the decade.